Speech AB, 8th graders, welcome back. What's going to happen today is we are going to finish Chapter 1 notes and homework. I'll go over the homework problems so that you guys can do it on your own, and hopefully it should be some fun homework problems, and you'll get to interview someone too as well. So we're going to finish it off, and actually it's not going to be as much as the last time. We are continuing Chapter 1's lesson from starting with context. We talked about context and how important it is in speech communication because context can change meaning, and it can change the type of communication you receive and how we send some things. So we left off with the dimensions of context from last class: physical dimension, relationship, cultural, temporal. We're going to dive into more of the relationship context, and we can start taking the notes right now over here. So here are 6 relationship contexts that will change the way you talk to people depending on our situations. And the first context is family context. You first learn to communicate basically in your family and how you've grown up. The quality of a family's communication depends upon also your guys' culture. Within each family, there's also, there's usually like a parent or someone that has some sort of authoritative figure. And then there's children. Some families, it depends. Some you guys grew up, some are maybe kind of strict. For me, growing up, I couldn't go out after school unless if it had some sort of school thing, like for example, band, or I had some school assignments that I had to do, but otherwise I had to go back home. And I also realized that some other families are not as strict and a little bit more democratic. So family context is going to be important. So roles of family members. Strictness of family rules. And then let's talk about, some of the roles of the families. Parents usually communicate differently than their children. Because for the most part, they're usually locked into a position of authority. I think this is just how it goes for most families. Parents are usually telling the children what time to wake up, when to go to school, because they're usually in charge of driving, money, food. And so that's why they have that type of position of authority, as I stated before. So parents communicate differently than children because we're going to talk about authority a little bit. I think it kind of happens again in chapters 3 and chapters 4, where, if someone is in a position of authority, it does not have to be parents. It could also be, maybe you find out that someone is maybe a doctor or a colonel or something like that, or a principal. Then, as soon as you find something out like that, maybe for some people, the way that you talk to that person also changes. Okay. If you grew up with siblings, the way that you talk to your siblings might be a little bit different than the way you talk to your parents. Okay, so the way you talk to siblings or cousins. All right, so let's now move on to our second one. So we got family context. Parents, the way you talk to your parents might be a little bit different for most people. the way you talk to your siblings or your cousins is going to be a little bit different from the way you talk to your parents. For the most part, I know there are different types of families out there. There are some more families there are some families that are a little bit more democratic or a little bit more or less structured in that type of sense, and maybe they speak to each other more in the same level. Second context that can affect the way that you speak to people are friendship and peer group context. Your friends, basically. Okay. As soon as you go out of your family and then you come to school, because for the most part, a lot of friendships start where you spend a lot of your time at. And then for right now, for you guys, I think you guys spend a majority of your life right now has been spent in school. So friendships, and it really depends on what type of person you are and how you grew up. For example, some people they tend to be a little bit more open to their friends just because maybe they share some common grounds. Maybe they play the same video game, or they're at the same tennis team, or they eat the same foods, or they hang out during lunchtime, or they're taking the same classes. So, when there's more common ground, especially with friendships, then maybe some people tend to be a little bit more open and their speech is not as formal as how you would talk to figures of authority. But realizing that everyone's a little bit different, some people may be a little bit less open and maybe a little bit more, they maybe hold back a little bit just because of the experiences that they've come up with over the years. All right, you guys, next up on context on how your speech could change is, well, I've already talked about it, but let's go to school and work context. Okay, so the way you talk to your family members might be a little bit different from the way you talk to your friends and your peers. And then, of course, when you guys come to school, when you go to school, whether it be online or in person, there's a specific way that you talk to your teachers, to your principals, to your counselors, and then also to your classmates that you don't really know that well. Okay? So principals, counselors, and classmates. Oh my gosh, classmates. For example, sometimes teacher says good morning, you'll say good morning, you raise your hand, saying good morning, raising your hand for questions. That. And really just being in, I don't really want to call it like I guess you could say like, for the most part, students are in a, subordinate role, meaning that, you are told to do certain things, you have to take notes, especially some of you guys are taking my math class, and then let's talk about my math class. I already have videos prepared just like this. And then even for this class itself too, then, the teacher such as me is, I'll instruct you to do something, please open up Google Classroom, this, and this, and then make sure you watch my videos and make sure that you take the notes, such as right now. And then you, as a student, are kind of in this subordinate position where, so from time to time you'll question some things, of course, and that's what I like. But for the most part, you're kind of just like do as what you're told, and that's what I mean by like a subordinate position. Okay, because we have that role as a teacher. So a teacher, we tell the students to do stuff and the students just kind of follow like that. So it has that type of, role in itself with the school and work context. And then now going to work, a lot of you guys will go to work after high school, whether it be after college or something like that. But, bosses are the same way, bosses pretty much like assign the work for the workers, and workers usually follow. Okay.